What if the biggest obstacle standing between you and real wisdom isn't what you don't know, but what you refuse to face within yourself? Carl Jung taught us that true folly is not just ignorance, it's blindness to the dark corners of our own psyche. A foolish man doesn't simply make mistakes. He is trapped in patterns he refuses to see or understand. He wears masks, denies his feelings, chases hollow power, drifts without meaning, and shirks responsibility, all while believing he is wise. But how do you know if you are that man? In this deep dive into Jungian psychology, we uncover the 6 unmistakable signs that reveal a man trapped in his own foolishness, and the path out of it. In every man's life, there is a silent battle taking place beneath the surface, between wisdom and folly, awareness and blindness, courage and fear. Carl Gustav Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, revealed that foolishness is far more than simple ignorance or lack of intelligence. It is a profound psychological condition, a failure to engage honestly with the deepest parts of oneself. Jung taught us that the human psyche is layered, complex, and shadowed, and true folly arises when a man denies or refuses to understand these hidden layers. To see the foolish man clearly, we must look beyond his actions and words and peer into the unconscious forces that shape his existence. Here are the 6 unmistakable signs of a foolish man, illuminated by Jungian psychology, each revealing a dangerous disconnection from his true self and the world around him. Number 1, the refusal to face the shadow. At the core of Jung's psychology is the concept of the shadow, the dark, unconscious parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or are unaware of. These are our impulses, fears, desires, and weaknesses that don't fit the image we want to project. The foolish man refuses to acknowledge his shadow. Instead of owning his flaws, insecurities, and hidden drives, he projects them outward, blaming others, external circumstances, or fate. This projection is a defense mechanism that protects the fragile ego but also prevents growth. Jung warned that the shadow is not gone when ignored. It grows stronger, more chaotic, and eventually controls the person's behavior from the shadows. The foolish man lives in a state of self-deception, where his unconscious fears shape his conscious decisions, often leading to destructive patterns. True wisdom requires the courage to face the shadow, integrate it, and reclaim the lost parts of the self. Without this integration, a man is fragmented, a ship without a rudder, easily tossed by life's storms. This refusal to confront the shadow is a silent surrender to weakness. It is the invisible chain that binds a man to his fears and limitations. By denying the darker aspects within, he sacrifices self-mastery and hands over power to the very impulses he refuses to see. This inner fracture creates vulnerabilities that others instinctively sense and exploit. To refuse the shadow is to live in half-truths, illusions that erode authenticity and true strength. The man who denies his shadow is a stranger to himself, disconnected from the deeper wells of his own psyche. Yet the path to dominance and respect begins precisely where most falter, in the dark corners of the mind where the shadow lurks. Facing it is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of courage, the foundation upon which unshakable power is built. Number 2, overidentification with the persona. Every man wears a persona, a social mask designed to present an acceptable, often idealized version of himself to the world. Jung emphasized that the persona is necessary for social interaction, but becomes dangerous when it is mistaken for the whole self. The foolish man is trapped behind his persona. He is obsessed with appearances, constantly seeking approval and validation to maintain his carefully constructed image. This over-identification means he lives as a performance, disconnected from his authentic feelings, values, and desires. Vulnerability becomes a threat, so he hides behind pride, arrogance, or superficial confidence. But the persona is fragile. It cannot sustain the weight of authentic selfhood and will crack under pressure, exposing the emptiness beneath. Jung saw this as a form of alienation, a man estranged from himself, locked in a prison of social expectations and fears. This obsession with the persona is a subtle form of self-betrayal, The man who clings to his mask is constantly at war with his true nature, fearful that any glimpse beneath the surface will lead to rejection or loss of status. Because he prioritizes image over substance, he forfeits genuine connection, both with others and himself. His relationships become shallow exchanges rooted in illusion rather than truth. The persona's brittle facade ultimately isolates him, for no mask can replace the depth of real character. True power arises not from external approval, but from an unshakable inner foundation forged by self-acceptance. To break free from this prison, a man must tear down the walls of his persona and embrace the full spectrum of his humanity, flaws, and all. Only then can he live with authenticity, resilience, and undeniable strength. Number 3, emotional repression or dysregulation. Jung's psychology gave profound importance to the role of emotions in human life. A foolish man either suppresses his emotions entirely, believing that feelings are a sign of weakness, or he becomes overwhelmed and controlled by them. Emotional repression leads to numbness, disconnection, and eventually psychosomatic illness, while emotional dysregulation causes impulsivity, outbursts, and destructive relationships. Jung viewed emotional intelligence as the ability to feel deeply, yet respond consciously, maintaining balance between passion and reason. The foolish man lacks this balance. He either disconnects from his emotional core, living in a cold, robotic state, or he lets his feelings run wild, surrendering to every impulse. Both extremes lead to chaos, poor decisions, and inner conflict. Emotional maturity, as Jung taught, involves integrating feeling and thinking, allowing a man to navigate life's challenges with resilience and depth. This failure to regulate emotions is a profound handicap in the battle for self-mastery. When emotions are repressed, the man becomes disconnected not only from others, but from himself, unable to access the vitality and insight that genuine feeling provides. His life grows hollow, drained of meaning and spontaneity. Conversely, when emotions dominate unchecked, he becomes a slave to fleeting moods, his decisions ruled by momentary desires and fears. This instability erodes trust, fuels conflict, and undermines any claim to inner strength. True power comes from mastering one's emotional landscape, feeling fully without losing control, responding rather than reacting. Only through this integration can a man transform emotional energy into a source of wisdom and strength, navigating life's turbulence with clarity and purpose. Number 4, misunderstanding power and authority. Power is often misunderstood, especially by the foolish man. Jung's archetypal psychology distinguishes between true power, which arises from inner authority, self-knowledge, and integration, and false power, which is control based on fear, domination, and insecurity. The foolish man confuses power with domination. He tries to control others, impose his will, and prove himself through aggression or manipulation. This type of power is brittle because it depends on external validation and creates resistance and isolation. Jung pointed out that true power is silent, calm, and self-assured. It is the power of a man who has mastered himself, who does not need to prove anything to anyone, and who leads by example rather than force. The foolish man's quest for power often masks his deep insecurity and fear of vulnerability. Without true inner authority, power becomes a dangerous, self-destructive force. This misunderstanding results in a vicious cycle where the man's actions breed distrust and rebellion rather than respect and loyalty. His aggressive attempts to dominate only reveal his inner chaos and lack of control, pushing people away and leaving him isolated. In contrast, genuine authority stems from a profound acceptance of one's strengths and weaknesses, a calm confidence that requires no posturing. Such a man commands presence simply by being grounded and authentic. The foolish man's failure to grasp this subtlety condemns him to a hollow pursuit of power, one that ultimately destroys both himself and those around him. True authority is a quiet mastery, a sovereign inner kingdom that no external force can shake or diminish. Number 5, lack of purpose and meaning. Jung famously said that the search for meaning is the fundamental drive of human life. A foolish man drifts without purpose, guided by distractions, impulses, or the expectations of others. He confuses activity with progress, busyness with fulfillment. Without a clear purpose, life becomes shallow, empty, and prone to despair. This lack of direction leaves him vulnerable to addiction, manipulation, and fleeting pleasures. Purpose, in Jungian terms, is not a fixed goal, but a lifelong process of individuation, the journey toward becoming whole and authentic. The foolish man has not embarked on this journey. Instead, he clings to external markers of success or temporary comforts, never asking the deeper questions about who he truly is or what he truly wants. This existential emptiness is a hidden crisis that often goes unrecognized until it explodes in a midlife crisis or burnout. This void of meaning acts like an invisible poison, sapping energy and dulling the spirit. Without a guiding compass, the man wanders through life reacting to circumstance rather than shaping it, surrendering his power to forces beyond his control. His identity becomes a patchwork of societal expectations and transient desires, lacking the coherence that comes from authentic self-understanding. The failure to pursue purpose leaves him adrift and vulnerable, constantly seeking external validation or numbness to fill the aching emptiness inside. Jung taught that true meaning emerges only when a man commits to the hard, often painful work of self-discovery and transformation. Without this commitment, he remains a hollow shell, lost in a sea of distraction, forever chasing illusions that can never satisfy the deeper hunger of the soul. Number 6, avoidance of responsibility. Finally, the foolish man refuses to own his life. Responsibility, the willingness to accept the consequences of one's actions and decisions, is central to Jung's idea of psychological maturity. The foolish man blames others, circumstances, or fate for his failures and shortcomings. He refuses to learn from mistakes, resisting the painful but necessary process of self-reflection and growth. This avoidance traps him in a victim mentality, stagnation, and recurring cycles of failure. Jung taught that true freedom is born from responsibility. When a man claims ownership of his shadow, emotions, actions, and purpose, he becomes the master of his destiny. Avoidance of responsibility is therefore not just foolish, it is the root of immaturity and psychological bondage. This refusal to accept responsibility is the final link in the chain that binds a man to weakness and helplessness. Without accountability, growth is impossible. Without growth, the self remains fragmented and powerless. The foolish man's blame shifts and excuses serve only to mask his fear of facing uncomfortable truths about himself. He remains trapped in the same destructive patterns, unable to break free from the cycles of disappointment and defeat. But Jung's psychology offers a different path, one of awakening and transformation. Recognizing these 6 signs in oneself or others is the first step toward change. It is not a sentence of condemnation, but an invitation to courageous self-examination. The foolish man is not doomed to remain foolish. Wisdom begins with the willingness to face the shadows within, to own one's truth, and to rise as a man who has mastered himself. This is the profound liberation Jung promised, the emergence of authentic power born from self-mastery and fearless awareness.